Hey everyone, and welcome. So we're going to jump right in to a really fascinating and honestly kind of strange idea today. What if the very best advice an automation company could give you is to not buy their stuff at all? I mean, get this. In an industry that is all about selling more and more robots, you've got top experts telling potential customers, nope, not yet, hold off. That is a wild thing to say, and, it definitely got my attention. So that's the big puzzle we're going to solve in this explainer. Why on earth would a company argue against its own sales? Well, it turns out they're playing a much smarter, longer game. They're telling some hard truths about when automation is a genius move and when it can be a complete and utter disaster. Okay, let's dive right in. And we're going to start with the money, because you know the drill with any big purchase. The price you see on the tag is almost never the price you actually end up paying. This is seriously the perfect way to think about it. When you buy a house, you're not just paying that one big number, right? You've got closing costs, insurance, property taxes, and of course, the surprise leaky roof. Automation is exactly like that. The robot itself, that's just the down payment. So you're looking at anywhere from $50,000 to maybe $150,000 just for the basic hardware. And yeah, that's a big chunk of change, but believe me, we are just getting started on our little journey to the real cost. And bam, right off the bat, here's the first major hidden fee. You can pretty much just add another 20 to 30% for what's called integration. The setup, the programming, making sure it actually works with your other equipment. It's the kind of cost a lot of vendors just conveniently forget to highlight in that first quote. And then you get the surprises. There's this great, or not so great, story of a food manufacturer who's halfway through their installation when they realize, oops, their coffee bags need special custom-made grippers. That was an extra 15 grand they hadn't budgeted for, and it put the whole project on ice for a month. Oh, and the spending doesn't stop once it's up and running. Nope. You've got to factor in maintenance, which usually runs about 3 to 5% of the purchase price every single year. So for a $100,000 system, that's another $7,500 year after year just to keep the lights on. And just look at how this all snowballs. Suddenly, that $100,000 robot is actually a $152,000 investment in year one alone. That's the number you need to be thinking about for your return on investment, not that shiny sticker price. But it's not just about the cost. The next big myth we need to bust is this idea that faster is always better, that maximum speed automatically means you're being more efficient. Well, it turns out it's not that simple. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. So yeah, sure, the big traditional robot is way faster on paper, no question. But look at that changeover line. Are you really more productive if you spend 45 minutes doing a big mechanical changeover every time you switch products? Or would you be better off with the slower robot that can switch jobs with a 30-second software tweak? In a place that makes lots of different things, that slower robot can actually run circles around the fast one. Okay, so we've talked cost, we've talked speed, but what does all this look like out there in the real world? Let's check out a few stories from folks who've actually been on the front lines of making this exact decision. I just love this quote. It captures a totally different kind of ROI, one that doesn't always show up on a spreadsheet. It's not just about money, it's about getting your time back, right? Imagine focusing on growing your business instead of constantly putting out fires with staffing. That is huge. And here's another awesome win. For this company, the financial return was, it was okay. But that wasn't the real story. The real game changer was this. Their product damage rate fell from 8% all the way down to practically 0. Think about that. That's a massive jump in quality and a huge cut in waste. But automation isn't always the hero of the story. Let's go back to that advice from the beginning. Here's a real case of a startup food company. They were only doing about 8 pallets a day. They had the cash ready to go, but the expert they talked to told them straight up, don't buy our robot. Take that 100 grand and put it into marketing. And what an incredible piece of advice that turned out to be. They did exactly that. They invested in marketing, and just 2 years later, their volume had tripled. Then they came back, and guess what? The automation project was a massive success. See, it's all about the timing. So that brings us to the most important question, right? How do you actually know when the time is right for your business? Let's take everything we've talked about and boil it down into a simple framework you can actually use. First things first, you have to completely reframe the question. The goal isn't to buy a robot. That's not a goal. The real goal is to fix whatever your biggest bottleneck is. Once you figure out what's holding you back, then you can ask if automation is the right tool for that specific job. And here is a super practical, data-driven checklist to help you out. If you're consistently doing 15 or more pallets a day, your products are in that 2 to 30 kilogram sweet spot, and you've got the floor space, okay, now you're in the right ballpark. And that last point, it's absolutely crucial. You need a partner for the long haul, not just some company that's going to sell you a box and disappear. And that really says it all, doesn't it? Automation can be a total game changer, a really powerful strategic move, but only when you use it at the right time for the right reasons. It's got to be a thoughtful decision about what your business actually needs, because at the end of the day, timing and context, they're everything. Thanks for watching.